Hello and welcome everyone to a special episode of the Franchise Tag. I am Gareth Smith, and this week I am joined by Logan Swanson of Augustina College and XFL Draft prospect, getting ready for the excitement of that new season that's coming up. So, how you doing, Logan?
I'm doing great. It's a beautiful day here. I'm currently in South Dakota and Sioux Falls. That's where Augustina University is. And so just kind of working out here with some of my trainers.
Now, thank you very much, obviously, for giving us the time today, because I do appreciate the closer you start getting to this draft, the more busy you're going to be getting ready for all of that. So what I'd like to do to begin with, if that's okay, is talk about your time at Augustina College and how you ended up going there and choosing that university in the first place.
Yeah, so Augustina University, it's in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. I'm from Mankato, Minnesota originally. It's about 2.5 hours, so it's just far away enough from my home that I can't just go back home.
Yeah.
But it's also far enough away that I get a completely new experience. So that was pretty crucial to me in picking my college. Along with my football team's culture at Augustina University, just truly surpassed a lot of the programs that I was getting offers from on the D2 level, and then even some FCS levels as well.
No, and obviously you could see from your time at that you had a very successful college career, even right down to particularly when you look at the preseason second team All-American, your second team All-American selection. These kind of things aren't something they just give out to anyone, and particularly the number that jumped out to me, I always like to look at the defense of the play, particularly, say, mentioned to you earlier, I'm an Eagles fan, and I'm quite proud of ours right now. It was the number of tackles for a loss, which 6.5 tackles for a loss, which is, as a defender, is kind of the goal in life.
Mm-hmm.
What would you say your highlight from your time at college was?
My highlight in my time was probably my best statistic year was actually my junior year, the year right before COVID in 2019. I tied the school record for 8 sacks in a season, and I had 15 and a half TFLs. So that was a pretty good season. And then they kind of learned that after that kind of breakout season, my senior year in 2021, we should double team that guy. So that was a whole new experience, just getting that double team more, because I play the 3 technique, not necessarily nose guard all the time, but they kind of made it as I was a nose guard because they had me constantly double teamed. And that was fine. But honestly, the highlight of my experience was playing with the boys. I love my team, love the culture that we have, love the winning attitude that we started to build throughout my entire time at Augie. And it's one of the best things that's ever happened in my life was playing college football. And I hope that my football career doesn't end there.
No, and obviously we're going to move on to talk about the potential future. So obviously when you talked about that, adapting from being in effect someone who only had to deal with that one player in front of you to suddenly being doubled, and I'm sure at points potentially trebled, how did you make that adjustment?
So the biggest thing with making that adjustment is just kind of training yourself to be in uncomfortable situations. So in practice, we would make it so if the offense switched their strengths, we completely switch. So I would go to the nose rep. The nose would slide out to 3 tech. So I had to be good at both positions, not only 3 tech, also at nose guard, and that, or 1 technique, same thing. But to be able to do both like that was pretty crucial. And I think that's also very helpful in showing my versatility when it comes to the next level. It's hey, I did 3 tech, I did 1 tech, I also did some 5 tech. You can see it all. Anything on the D line, I did. I was a pretty big guy, so that helped. I weighed at 320 pounds. I'm still at about that 310, 315. And so I brought a lot of force with me. And really, there's a couple of things line-wise. You as a lineman yourself that you really need to know is first strike, quick feet, and low man wins. I mean, you get those things, 95% of plays are yours to win, and I felt like I dominated in all three of those aspects and got knocked back on every play. And that's something that I was pretty proud of to say, that no matter what, whether I made the play or didn't make the play, I was a difference maker because I was getting that knockback and causing chaos in the backfield.
Do you have a favorite game that you had when you played at college? Is there a game that you look back and think that if I could send the tape off to teams in the XFL, NFL, this would be the game I'd show them?
Yeah, so actually my favorite game, and it's actually kind of wild that I'm talking about it right now, is the Augustina University versus the University of Sioux Falls game in 2019. That game was, so we call it the key to the city. So USF, University of Sioux Falls, is only 2 blocks away from Augustina.
All right.
We are in the same conference, same division, same everything. And we play for a big key to the city. All right. And that game, USF has more wins overall in that time period of having the key, but we got it back at their house. And that game was probably one of my best games of my collegiate career. I had a strip sack. I had a sack to end the game. Nice. I had 2 TFLs. I got NSIC Player of the Week. The atmosphere was crazy. I remember just being so sore during the entire game because you were just getting pounded in the trenches. But I remember that feeling afterwards when all of that hard work just came to us winning the game, and then running over to the key was just truly a moment that I don't think I'll ever lose.
No, I think when you've got those kind of games that generally will stick with you, because so I think back to even my time at university, and I played a different sport. I played rugby at university, and I even think back to similarities with what you mentioned there when we played our local rival from the same city, and they were never friendly games.
Yeah, never.
There was always a little bit of extras. Like I remember the last game that was one of the last games I played for my university. I finished the game with a dislocated jaw and 3 cracked ribs. So, friendly game. But you generally find that those games, because you get so fired up for them as well.
Yeah.
And that fire, as long as you control that fire,
you
can't be a difference maker, particularly in the kind of position where you're playing, where you've got to have that fight, but also that restraint not to make sure you're hitting the quarterback late or getting caught doing something silly like a face mask, or it's about maintaining that control and that aggression. How do you find being able to control and have that right level of aggression in the game?
So one of the things that I've been working on, I started playing when I was a freshman, getting some good, valuable reps in the sophomore year. I started starting at the D-line. But the biggest thing that I worked on is I had plays where I was killing it in the backfield, making a play or chasing somebody down, or I had plays that I was getting pushed back. That was kind of what's happening my sophomore year. That's why I didn't really have a breakout year. My junior year, we kind of switched up our defensive scheme a little bit, and we just were told to play. He's like, play hard, play fast. You're going to play A or B gap. You were just going to read what the guard does. If the guard reaches you, you're going to dip underneath, and like a bunch of different defensive scheme. I loved that defensive scheme. It worked great with me. And we started to become a really run-stopping defense. And then senior year, I remember the head coach just pulling me aside and being like, hey, Logan, this is what your goal is. All of COVID year 2, training, that whole year of just pure training. He's like, what I need you to do is I need you to work on your consistency. He's like, I want you to be that dominant player every single play. And so that was something that I worked on. And I feel like my senior year, that's exactly what I did. Is I was that consistent guy in the backfield, consistent guy making that disruption, getting that QB off his spot. I might have not got the sack, but making the QB not be in his spots is just as important.
Oh, no, and particularly if you get because when you watch the game, any chance you can to hurry the QB to affect that decision-making, when you look at the amount of interceptions that are generated in the game, it might be off, in effect, a player like yourself putting that QB under unnecessary duress, and he makes a panic move or a panic throw, and that's where mistakes can happen. So, I know everyone looks at the sack numbers on players and how many sacks have you had, but those pressures are equally as important in the game, because you might do something that, in effect, which I know there's no such thing as an interception assist, but it's almost like,
but it's a thing.
It's a thing that you are doing by pressuring that QB. He could make that silly throw that leads to a nice easy pick for a corner, who then gets the glory stat on you. As long as he thanks you afterwards, that is all that matters. So you brought it up then, actually, and I think it's quite an important topic to talk about, was the COVID year, because obviously it's not something that any college years really had, other than maybe during wartime, where we've had to, in effect, abandon seasons. How did you find the motivation to carry on staying in shape, training, and being ready for the following year?
So our team, we had some pretty big goals in mind. So one of our biggest goals was to be NSIC champions of our conference, and that's what we set out to do. We said, hey, we get another year to make that a reality. So we attacked every day with, it's the world was ever changing at that moment. We didn't know what was going to happen. Like, we went on spring break and then we were gone.
Yeah.
Like, that's different. We didn't even finish spring ball. We had our spring game coming up, and it was done. Like, oh, hey, no spring ball. We're like,
It was crazy times, because as I've said to you before, that I was in Florida in the February and reading about COVID being in the state of Florida at that point in time, and going, in my head still going, I'll be fine, nothing's going to happen. And then literally returning back to the UK, and 3 weeks later, our PM was on telly telling us, don't go anywhere, stay in your house, please. It was just a crazy time. And did it impact you? How did it affect you mentally during that time?
So one of the really nice things is almost a majority of people went home, but I still stayed in Sioux Falls and worked out in the garage of we made a makeshift gym in one of the football players' garages, and we sanitized everything. Like, if someone used it, like, you wiped it down, and there was no, we did the quarantining and everything. Like, we never messed around with that. But I mean, it was definitely, there's a lot of uncertainty. We didn't know if we were going to have a football season that fall. Like, we truly didn't know until late August, like, hey, you guys aren't going to have any games.
Yeah.
And then we're like, oh, like, we were waiting all summer. We started to get lifting back in groups of 10. But even then, there was so much uncertainty, so much unknowns. And I was labeled as a team captain that year. So not only motivating myself, but motivating others to want to keep working through that, which is keep reiterating, our goal doesn't change even if we don't have a season.
Yeah.
Our goal is still, when we come back, we're going to make it to the playoffs. We're going to be NSIC champions, and we're going to make something special about Augie football. And that's what we did when we came back. And we took that whole year of we're going to work on the little things that we need to make us be that team.
Now, I'm not going to ask you to name names. Was there any players you had to particularly coax along or G up a little bit to be more motivated during that time, being a captain? Or was your team all fairly well behaved and they all stayed on track with their training during?
Yeah. So, for the most part, everyone was pretty on track with that goal. It was a pretty clear consensus that we all wanted the same thing. Now, definitely when we came back, there was a little bit some people might have put on a little bit more weight than they should have. So when we did that first running session, the people that were there all summer, we were fine. We were running. We were in shape. The people who weren't, we could tell. Those are the guys who were throwing up. Those were the guys who were aching in pains. And we're like, well, we should have ran a little bit more this summer. It's more of a tough situation.
I think that's part of the thing with football itself. It's the camaraderie, but obviously you got to give that tough love when necessary. But also being able to support people who need that extra support. And obviously with being someone who is on the D-line, with that first game back, how did you feel that first time you walked back on a field and played again? Did you feel like, boom, I'm ready? Or did you feel it took a couple of snaps to get back to full pace?
I mean, it's definitely so actually the spring before we had one scrimmage against a different team. So Central Missouri, we did a scrimmage against them, and that was kind of my like couple of plays of like, wow, like, okay, this is to play a game again. Because after going, basically 12 months without a game, a full year without playing football is just like kind of a lot of like, you can practice a game all you want, but it's not the same when you know exactly what play the offense is going to run, like, or just going against the same guy every single practice. Like, you learn their tendencies, you know exactly what they're going to do. But to go against a different team, like, that was just kind of like a little shake of like, oh, this is what it's like again. You didn't know, I learned that you might take for granted some of the opportunity you get. So even with everything post-season, like post-senior year with football, every opportunity I get is a blessing. And that's kind of how I attack everything. Like, it's the last time I'll ever step on a field.
And it's by having that mentality as well, it probably makes you that a little bit more hungrier when you're on the field.
Yeah.
Because you're thinking, this could be my last time to shine on the field. So I'm going to go out with almost on your shield, in effect, if you think back to the old like Roman or Spartan mythology a little bit there of, I'm going to go out, I'm going to give my all for this opportunity. So that's a very good attitude to have. And obviously, NFL draft coming around, when the NFL draft came around, did you speak to many teams during that period?
Yeah. So postseason, I went to the showcase. It's called the Gridiron Show, or the College Gridiron Showcase. It's down in Fort Worth, Texas. And I did that, and it showcased just the top guys, the D1, D2, D3, or even Canadian football players were there as well. And it was just, like, these are different guys, different schools. You guys have no idea who each other are. You're just deemed, the best in America. You're all Americans. Like, let's see what you can do against each other. And there was 31 or 30 out of 32 NFL teams there. Some XFL scouts, some USFL scouts, indoor football scouts, European scouts. There's a bunch of scouts that were at that showcase for 3 days. And that was just 3 days of doing interviews and doing one-on-one practice drills, we did a scrimmage at the very end of it. And I felt like I was where I belonged. Every day I went out there and I did exactly what I was supposed to do. I always learned the plays. I feel like I'm a very smart football player, that I retain plays really easy or understand the concept that once I get told why I do something, I can mimic it and do it 100% accuracy to the best of my ability. And I still brought that same aggression, same physicality of knowing, like, hey, like, if I don't do good at this showcase, I'm a D2 athlete. And it's going to be harder for me to make it in the NFL than it would be compared to a D1 athlete. So I went in there like, anybody who's up against me is preventing me from reaching my dreams. And that's what I did. During the scrimmage at CGS, I'm definitely not, on paper, the best athlete. I can say that. Like my pro day, I felt I could have done better.
Yeah.
I was actually sick that day, but I worked through it, didn't tell anybody that. But, I was feeling sick that day. I had sinus infection and everything. Like, it wasn't my top performance. But when it comes to the actual game of football, that's where I excel. And when we did the practices at CGS, when we got to the scrimmage, that's where I really was like, hey, one-on-one drill, you might have beat me in one-on-one drill, but now let's put it in a game situation where there's 5 offensive linemen and 4 defensive linemen. and I have a two-way go, and I actually get space and field vision. I get to see where the QB is going to step. It was a whole different ball game.
Yeah,
I had 5 sacks, a bunch of TFLs. I mean, I was just having a field day every time I was on the field. I was doing cartwheels on the sideline. Like, I was hype man. Like, it was a blast. The D-line as a whole during that whole thing did really good. But some of those guys that I wouldn't compete against are currently on NFL teams right now. So, like, knowing that I can compete with them and that I did was great. I had a couple of different teams talk to me a little bit. I had, like, the Dolphins and the Cowboys. I had a lot of
Dolphins wouldn't be a bad side to go to looking at the moment.
Yeah, but I did.
The way they've started, they don't look too bad, do they?
Yeah. But so with the Gridiron Showcase, I knew I had to go to the Showcase, ball out. Once I balled out at the Showcase, I'd get an agent. So balled out the Showcase, got an agent. John Perez, my agent, he's like, hey, I believe in you. I don't care that you're a D2 athlete. We're going to get you on a team. And then he's like, with whatever opportunity we get, we're gonna ride it out. So then I was like, okay, agent secured. Now what do I need to do? Now I need to get a pro day invite. Got a pro day invite. Did a pro day at South Dakota State University. Went to South Dakota State University. Did the pro day. I was like, now what do I got to do? And they're like, well, nothing. Now you just wait for the draft. Draft day, had my phone ready. I was in contact with a couple different teams. My agent working on getting either whether it be free agency or getting a walk-on invite to a training camp. Didn't end up going my way. It was already too late to join the USFL.
Yeah,
I would have had to commit earlier, but I wanted to see if there was the NFL chance first.
No,
yeah, and then so the XFL, they started talking about the XFL at that time. My agent's like, hey, XFL is something you're interested in? I said, yep, let's see what goes on. He's like, okay, it's going to be another pro day. I said, perfect. Like, now's my time to redeem myself after the first.
Is that the one in Arizona?
Correct. That's the one in Arizona. And he's like, this is your showcase. This is the XFL showcase. It's going to get you in the player draft pool. Maybe. He's like, it all depends on how you perform. I said, all right, let's do it.
Like pressure, right?
I was like, it's another opportunity to hopefully get me to my dream. And so I went to Arizona with my boss, actually. And we went down there, and I went and performed at the showcase. Same thing. I did really good. I actually improved on all of my stats for my pro day, which, shows that, if I train. I was training at Sanford Power here in Sioux Falls and everything before my pro day and after to keep myself ready to go. I improved. Still had the same athleticism for being a 320-pound guy. Having a 172 10-yard dash is very good. Just to show that initial 10 yards, I'm a very fast D lineman. You're never going to really catch me running 40 yards. I will, but you'll never catch me doing it very often.
If a D lineman has to run 40 yards, something's gone very wrong one way or the other.
Yeah.
Like if the QB's going backwards that way 40 yards, he's running away. But yeah, sorry.
And I wish on my pro day, so since I was sick and everything, I did not do nearly as well in my bench press as I was training at. And I hit 18 reps on my bench press on my pro day. And I was ready to go for the XFL showcase, but that's one of the things we didn't do. But in the gym now, I'm hitting 28, 29 reps, which is exactly where they want an interior D lineman at. So I feel like, ready to go in that regards too, strength-wise compared to everyone else. And the XFL experience, they had us connected in like this little dome that they use to make video games, that to really analyze like your percentile compared to all the other D linemen. What's your lean angle at? Like, what's your foot strike speed? Like, how well you rip, how well you just play football. And so that was really interesting. And I was in the top 15 percentile in almost every category. So I felt like that was good. And I know a couple guys who went to showcases and they haven't gotten that draft pool invite. So getting that draft pool invite truly made my day, knowing that like I gave it my all in Arizona, and it's going to give me one more chance.
It is.
But keep going.
And the thing I like about the XFL, I think it's an opportunity for players to not just carry on playing football, but also a chance for them to potentially show the likes of the NFL, because I know there's the link now with the XFL that has never really been there whenever the XFL's tried going in the past, whether it was under the very doomed Vince McMahon era where they basically tried making it a wrestling and American football combined, to the iteration which I think would have done well if it wasn't for COVID coming in and killing it, the 2.0 version. I think that the link that they have now with the NFL, I think, is quite an important aspect for the sustainability of the league, but also for those roots of players who do go on to shine, that they're not having to such an awkward conversation go, yeah, I know I balled out last year, but I'm now wanted by this NFL team who's offering me a lot more money. So I think that's where potentially having that better linkage between the two leagues, I think, is quite an important step that they never really went for, because they always tried to be, we're going against the NFL, whereas now they're working with the NFL. And when you look at some of the innovations that came out and what you can now consider standard features of watching an NFL game, like some of the TV angles, a lot of them were from the very, very first XFL that appeared. The best way to describe it, the Madden looks, the interesting camera angles, the sky cameras, all those kind of things that would give you these really...
The pylon cameras.
Yeah. All that kind of stuff came from that iteration of the sport. So, end of the day, having more options is only going to improve the innovation out there. But as you said, that looking at all the analytics in real time like that must have been really interesting for yourself as well. So, obviously, they've announced the teams. There's rumors that next week the names are going to be officially announced. There's rumors it's going to be, I think it was Tuesday this week, actually. Now I think we're moving to another week. So rumors are tomorrow, but then it's like all rumors of these things. It's only as good as the information when it actually happens. Do you have any preference of where you want to play?
I'll play for whatever team believes in me, just like my agent believes in me and my head coach did in college. Honestly, I'd be honored to play for any team. No teams in Minnesota, unfortunately, or in the Midwest, so they're all down south. Or not all of them. There's one in Seattle, one in Washington, D.C. But I think, realistically, I think it'd be cool to move down to Texas just to get a completely different culture.
There's a few choices down there as well.
Yep, there's 3 of them down there. So, I mean, if any of those teams want me, I'm all for you. But other than that, I really am down to play at any place. I have some people I know who live in Seattle. I have some people I know who live down in Orlando. I have some people I know who live down in Dallas. Like, I'm down to go wherever. Or just to experience something new and to continue playing the sport I love. So I'm excited to just get another opportunity. I'm very hopeful for that opportunity. I think I have a very good chance. And I can tell you with full 100% confidence that if I get that chance, I'm for sure get another one.
That's brilliant. And I'll be honest with you, we will be, when the draft comes out, we will be watching, obviously rooting for you. We'll be keeping our eye out, waiting for that name of Logan Swanson to be read out, and when we find out where you're going for the new season. But no, thank you very much for your time today, Logan. Vastly appreciate it. Obviously, further down the line, when you are selected, I'm going to say that here at this point in time, when, not if you are selected, would love to have you back on again to talk about the next phase of your career in the XFL. And obviously, we are in the UK quite excited about the XFL coming back, because at the end of the day, any more opportunity for us to get to watch football, we are all going to be happy for. But no, thank you very much for your time today, and heavily appreciate having you on to talk to me today.
Yeah, I look forward to our next interview when I get picked up.
Cheers. Thank you very much. Thank you everyone for listening today. We'll see you all again soon with another special episode.